We're recording. Cool. So this is going to be the first mini workshop, is what I'm calling it, over intermediate developer environments. And this is just meant to kind of supplement and expand on the material in the course. And so this is the first one, production, and things will probably get better as we go on, but just wanted to get started and just try and stay consistent. So look out bi-weekly for these. And I'm going to be kind of taking polls on what topics people want covered in the Discord and stuff like that. But already there's quite a list of things I know I want to go over, and I'm sure people would find valuable. So intermediate developer environments, we talked about developer environments in the course, and that was one of my favorite lessons because I think it's really important, and it's something that isn't covered or talked about in a lot of training material, I find. And you feel much more empowered if you understand your developer environment and you know how to think about it, know how to set it up, know how to find problems, or just look for answers, look for what other people have done. That's usually what it is, usually what I find myself doing. And so I just want to do a quick review of the structure of a React app. I think we talked about this twice in the course, but I just think it's good to go over it because this plays into some GitHub stuff we're going to get into, and just kind of thinking about the developer process, like how you would actually do something on a job, or if you have a big project that would be risky if it was exposed. So yes, the structure of a React app, here we are. If you close everything, this is what you'll see in just a create React app. We have a bunch of files in here, but this is where we add our code, all the code we write, and all this other stuff. This is like the boilerplate. It's the setup for the project itself that's necessary. And so at the top level is the package.json, really. And this is the main config, the top level config that defines your project. So you put the name, you put the version. There are scripts you can run. So these are just shortcuts you can run when you say npm. Like, for example, when we start our app, we say npm start. npm, we're activating the node package manager, and then we're pointing at the start command, which just does React script start, which happens to be the way to start an app. So it runs that, and then this is going to open up again. So now I'm going to have two, and our chart disappeared because it's building in real time. And so scripts, but really the important part here is the dependencies. These are the packages we pull in to use in our project. A lot of these are just necessary. They came with our Create React app, like React Scripts, React DOM, React, and then like Axios. We added this in. We added this line chart library. We added this modal library. This shows us the versions. So that's nice. So that's the top level. So if someone were to pull this project down from GitHub, they would have this package.json, and they could just run npm install, and it will install all of these. And getting even more specific, and this goes to package lock.json, we have these specific versions for these libraries, for these dependencies, which is nice, but the package.lock.json really expands on this. It gives us hashes from the signed binaries from all of these projects. So, like in GitHub, they say check your binaries, don't trust, verify, and this is kind of, a way that you can verify the software that you're pulling into this project. So each one of these packages, they have a version, they have their own dependencies. So your dependencies have dependencies, and that's why we call them dependencies. It's fun as like a PlebDev to be able to pull in all of these cool packages that let you do interesting things. But as you get more adversarial, you realize that dependencies are more of a liability than an asset a lot of times. But we're not worrying about that yet. We're still just building cool stuff, and we're going to use all the packages we want. So package lock, we're locking in the versions, we're verifying them with hashes. Pretty simple. You'll never look through this, and in package.json, you'll never change that much in here, especially manually. Normally, you'll run commands, and it'll automatically update like when you install a new package like Axios or something. So the package lock, and then, okay, we're talking about our packages here, but they actually live inside of node modules. So node modules is this big, ugly folder. And you see my syntax highlighter actually in VS Code. You can see it's like graying out node modules. Like it's telling me, my syntax highlighter is telling me, don't pay attention to this. And when you open it up, all of these are grayed out. And that's often because you don't want to, go in here and change things manually ever. But, this is the database really of all of the code that we're using in our project. So we have to have this locally. But a lot of times you won't want to push this up to GitHub, because having the package lock and having the package JSON means that someone, if they clone the project, if they pull your project down locally, they can just run the install command and it'll create node modules for them. They don't need your node modules. And so a lot of times we don't want to push node modules up, so we ignore it. And that's what this git ignore is doing right here. And this was actually generated through Create React App. So they gave us some defaults here to ignore. So node modules is right here. You can see /node modules just pointing to the path. There's some other stuff here, some build folders and .env, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yes, git ignore is important. It'll just let us push our code and not accidentally push something like node modules or something that's maybe secret or that we don't want to expose to GitHub. So yeah, that's just a review of the React project, our local environment here. And looking into the app we built, the little wallet we built, it is very insecure. We talked about this in the course. I mentioned this. My funds actually got swept in the middle of the course, like in the middle of recording, I think. So it's a very small wallet with 50 or 100 sats at any point in time to play around with, but it is not secure, right? People found our wallet, they found our secret key on GitHub, and they were just watching it and sweeping funds. People probably have scripts, and in fact, I know this, people have scripts and bots that just scan GitHub and scan the internet and look for secrets, private keys, and stuff like that. And right here in our header is our XAPI key for our LNbits wallet. And this is what gives you full read and write access to that wallet. And so we were just pushing this up to GitHub, straight up. So, if I wanted to go find this, I could go, let's go to my GitHub. Am I logged in? I am. And I'm going to find Pleb Wallet React right here. And so if I wanted to steal my own Bitcoin, I would come in here and open this, and then boom, XAPI key. It's just sitting right here. So not very secure. This was something that I mentioned, look up how to deal with the XAPI key, how to move it into a .env file and keep it secret for when we push to GitHub. So how do you do that? I had a really good idea of how to do that when I was starting to put this mini workshop together, but I actually discovered something pretty interesting that we're going to talk about. So let me pull up my browser again. And so environment variables in Node.js. So this is how I learned how to deal with secrets. I have a secret variable somewhere in my app. I need to use it for something. How do you deal with it? So in Node.js, which is JavaScript, not in the browser, but it's JavaScript locally, we're actually going to learn some Node.js and some future workshops in the backend course. It gives us process.env, which is a global variable that is injected during runtime. It is a view of the state the system environment variables. When we set an environment variable, it is loaded into process.env during runtime and later can be accessed. .env is a module available on npm to load environment variables into process.env so they can be added into your project by installing it. And so this was the process I was familiar with on hiding my secrets, hiding my API keys, whatever it is. If I need a password or I'm pointing to, my API and I don't want that to be public, that's how I'd hide it. So I was like, okay, we're going to do the same thing in a React app because it's JavaScript. I know the package exists. It should work. And then we'll just put our API key in a variable that's hidden. But as I read into it, I discovered that, let's see, there's a huge misconception about this. So in Create React App, so it allows us to set up environment variables, often used to store secret keys. And instead of using the key directly in your file, you store it in a .env file and reference it. You don't commit this .env file to source control, GitHub, etc. And then the idea there is if you don't push it to GitHub, then it's secret. And so this is even what people tell you on a very popular Stack Overflow question, but it doesn't hide your secret keys. And I just figured this out like yesterday as I was putting this together, and it's pretty interesting to think about. So the official React documentation actually mentions this. A lot of people miss this, I guess. They tell you do not store any secrets such as private API keys in your React app. Environment variables are embedded into the build, meaning anyone can view them by inspecting your app's files. Interesting. I didn't really understand, at first when I read this, I didn't really understand, like what does that mean? It's in the build, but why would it work in Node.js, but it wouldn't work in just a React app? And this has to do with just a basic idea for how web apps work. Because if I'm running, I've got my Pleb wallet here. It's deployed on a URL. We did that during the course. Someone could visit it and use the wallet. Well, what happens when they visit it? What happens is my app is essentially being sent into their browser. It's not my app as you see it right here. It's a bundled version, or they call it a binary, a bundled version, a compiled version. Those are some of the terms that are used to kind of describe it. But basically it's this code, it all still runs, it all still works, but it's run through a program that, compiles it and mashes it down into a smaller format that's easy to send over the web and just receive in your browser and load up really quickly. So since that's happening, there's no way I could hide this inside of that build because the entire app is being sent over. So there's no other reference point for me to have a secret key that I can hide it in this React app. And that's where we get into the importance of servers. And so I overlooked this fact. I thought, okay, we can hide secrets in our React app, but you cannot. It will always be there in the build somewhere deep in the build that someone can find and parse out. So how would you hide your secrets? You would need a server, no matter what. And so .env, this is the library. Here's the documentation for the .env library. And it's really simple how it works. Like if, and we will actually do this in a minute, but you install your .env library, you create a .env file, and you have these keys and values. Pretty simple. This is your secret key. Your secret key goes here. And then inside of your app, this is older JavaScript format. You would import it, and you would just run .env.config. And then, boom, your variable would be available to you. So it's really a pretty simple process. But we would need to do this on a server, right? We're not really ready to do this yet. So this is something I want to pursue in a future mini workshop. Is I want to have us build a very small server and a very small API in Node. And this way we can keep our secrets secret. And the reason that this will work in a Node app, in a server, and it doesn't work in our React app is that our server isn't getting built and sent to every browser. Our app is. But then our app, no matter what browser our app is in, no matter where our app is, it can always talk to our server. That's the big idea there. And so here I just took a very simple example of how you would kind of do this, how we will do this in a future workshop, by having our server make the API call to legend.lnbits, passing our XAPI key, and then actually returning it to our app. And so running an Express server, it's actually amazingly simple. Like if you take away this code, this is like the custom code that we would implement. All we're doing is we're importing Express, we're saying const app equals Express, and we're invoking it, thereby activating it. And then at the bottom here, we're saying app.listen 3000, and we're throwing out a console log. And so yeah, this is taking it live on port 3000. So that's how easy it is to set up a server in JavaScript. It's quite simple. It's just it's a machine that comes online on a certain port, and it's listening. It's listening for certain formats of requests being sent to it, such as requests from our front end. So in the future, our front end, our little wallet, when we want to get our wallet balance or send or receive, we're just going to ping our own server. And our server is going to grab this private XAPI key at runtime, and it will be able to remain completely secret. No one will be able to see it, and we'll make our API call, and it'll send us the response if we have a success, which our .then tells us, or it'll send us an error otherwise. So that's something to do in the future. But for right now, it's better to still hide our API keys a little bit more. Because right now, as I showed you before, you can just open up GitHub and, go right to this file and you can see the API key. But if I did have an environment variable, even if it was in the build, you wouldn't be able to see it here. You would actually have to parse through the build yourself, which a lot less people would be willing to do. And yeah, so we're just gonna do that really quick. We're gonna do this, and at the same time, we're gonna create our first staging branch. And this is another part of kind of intermediate developer environments. I guess that's what I'm calling it, which is just the idea that we're having a developer environment that's becoming a little more sophisticated. We're gonna be a little more careful. And so we're going to have something called a staging branch. It's sometimes called a development branch. But thus far, everything has been on master. You can see I'm on master here. If I run a command git branch, it'll show me all my branches, and there's only one here. It's master. So I want to create a new branch to make a change, and I'm going to call this branch staging. And the purpose of this is going to be that master is my main production deployment. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to have a deployment that I can go to and I can test and make sure it works, but it's not my production deployment. So it's a bit of redundancy. It's going to be something that's in between our local change and our production deployment. If you remember from the course, if you've made it to that part of the course, we deployed on Vercel, we deployed our project. So right here, this is my production version of my app. And yeah, it loads up. It's still working. Anyone can visit this URL. Hey, someone sent me some sats. 69 sats. Hell yeah. Thank you. So the pleb wallet's not looking too bad. So yeah, this is my production deployment, and it's just been up for weeks and weeks since I recorded this part of the course. Haven't really updated it, but if I wanted to update it, since it's connected to GitHub, we set up that connection from GitHub to Vercel. I could just make a change here, and if I pushed it up to GitHub, then boom, it would be deployed right away on that URL, and it'd be live to all of my hypothetical users. But like I said, I want to be able to test this. I want to be more careful now, so I'm going to make a new staging branch, and we're going to go through the process of making a change and being able to test it, and then being able to move that change over into production into the master branch. So enough talk, let's actually get started doing it. So to make a new branch in the command line, you do git checkout -b. -b stands for branch. If you remember anything with a dash in the terminals, it's called a flag. It's just like an option. And so -b, and we're going to name our branch, and we're going to call it staging. Put quotes there. Switch to new branch, staging. Cool. So I'm on staging now, and I am going to make, yeah, let's go ahead and do our .env file, and let's give this a try. So I'm going to make a new file here at the root, .env, and I'm going to call this x API key equals, and I actually, for React apps, I'm going to need to put React_app_ before this. This is just something it mentions in the documentation that you need to have this in order for your app to pick it up. And so now we're going to put our key in here. Just like so, okay? And now I should be able to access this with process.env, kind of like we saw before. So let's actually just console.log process.env and make sure it's here. Maybe I made a mistake, missed a step, we'll find out. So npm start, we'll run our app, and we'll open our console to see what this looks like. So here we are on localhost 3000. And okay, we're getting, it's just going again and again. Okay, and here it is right here. Scoot this over, React X API key right there. So nice. So we have it available in a variable. So now we'll just replace this right here. So let's actually make it at the top as a const, because it's not going to change. So I'm going to say const API key equals process.env dot, and we're going to do our full React_app_x API key. Gross. Okay. And then now we should be able to go to all of these headers and just put in the API key. So let's do that. API key. Put that in, and I'm going to save that. And okay, let's just check ourselves. And make sure, so we should be able to get our balance. Okay, so we're still getting our balance all the same. So now I know I'm making two other calls to these endpoints in the payments modal, I believe. Yeah, so we have handle send and handle receive. And so I'm going to put this in here, and I'm actually going to have to redefine it at the top of this file as well, because I haven't done that yet. So I'll just go over here, copy this, and yeah, our .env, our environment variable, it's available in any of our files through the process.env object. Cool, so that should work now. And okay, so I just made this change on staging. I want to test this in production. Not production, I want to test this on our deployment, and then I want to move that deployment to production. So we have our new staging branch, so let's push our code now and see what this would look like on GitHub. So I'm going to run git status first, which will show us our changes. Interesting thing here. This is why it's always good to run git status. So our .env file sitting here in the red, I don't even want it to be here, because if I was just not paying attention and I said git add dot, then all of a sudden it would be right here, and I would just be pushing my secret up to GitHub all the same. So this is a common mistake that people do, is pushing envs up to GitHub. You don't want to do that. That's why we have .gitignore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add .env. I'll just put it right here. Boom. And let's see what happens now. So I'm going to remove all of these changes, or unstage all of these changes now. And if I run git status again, we see the .env isn't even here. Okay, and that's because now we're successfully ignoring it, and our gitignore is updated, obviously, because we added that. So cool, that looks right. So now I will actually add everything, and then I'm going to get command-m, and I'm going to say moved API key into env. Commit that, and then we'll do git push. It will tell us where you're pushing up to. It's basically saying, we don't know where you're pushing up to. You made this new branch staging. Do you want to set this as the upstream? Basically meaning, like, do you want to make this connection to your hosted GitHub repo and push staging there? And so we're going to say yes, we do. We only have to run this one time since we just created this branch locally. So now it'll set the upstream to that, and it will push. There we go. That looks like it worked. So let's go over to our GitHub here. And you can see it's telling me staging had recent pushes less than a minute ago. Nice. So we have our staging here, but I want to see it deployed, just like how my main app here is deployed. So this is now where we can set up our staging environment so we can do this and also repeat it every time we make a change. So we can test ourselves, check ourselves before we push a bug into prod. So I'm going to go to the settings for this project. And first I'm going to need to add a domain. And we can add a free Vercel domain here. Been able to do this before, or you can use the domain you've bought. But since this is staging, it's just going to be for testing. We're just gonna call it pleb wallet react staging .vercel.app. It should let me add this. Cool. It says assign to master. So now this is what I'm going to change. I'm going to edit, and I'm going to have this go to our staging branch. I'm going to save this. Okay, assign to staging branch. And you notice it says preview right here for my staging branch. And then my actual production app, it says production, and that's assigned to the master branch. And so that's the kind of setup here we're going for. And Vercel just calls it preview. Vercel actually generates preview URLs for like all of your pushes, which is nice. But it's good to just have it listening on the staging branch specifically and always having this URL available. So I wonder if that worked. Let's check it out. Okay, it looks like it's here. We've got our sats, everything is being pulled in. I can't really tell though, because now our environment variables are hidden. If this is our new one. So let's actually make another little change here to staging, just so we can tell. What are we gonna do? I'm gonna make the chart. I'm just gonna make this loading a capital L, just so we can tell. Check ourselves, okay. That's our change, we'll add it. -m. Testing staging, and I'm gonna push, and you'll notice this time it'll just push. I don't need to set the upstream like we did last time. Okay, and so now this should be rebuilding. I think we will be able to see that in deployments maybe. Yes, so it's telling us it detected a new commit. This was our commit. It was on the staging branch. You can see this happened just now by me. So this is a really nice UI for kind of seeing all the changes, what branches they're going to, what the commit was. Okay, and boom, it is ready. So Now I'm going to go back here. So I should be able to go to my staging. Once again, I already had that open there actually. And capital L. Okay, cool. So now our staging is different than our master, and we can actually go here to our production and we'll see that it's a lowercase l. So nice. So we made our little change and it seems to be working. It actually doesn't though. That's interesting. Our balance is not being pulled in here. So we have some kind of error going on. 401 error. Request failed with 401. So maybe something did not translate here. Response. So I'm going to go over to my network tab. This is a good way to kind of learn how to debug API calls. You can always go to the network tab here and look at the API calls being made. And we see very clearly in red our wallet and our payments API calls are failing. The spot here, this is actually the Bitcoin price, that's working. So this tells us very likely what's happening. And I want to see what we requested. What did we send to them? So invoice or admin key required. Okay, that's basically telling us it's not loading up our key. Why is that? Well, this is because we didn't push our .env up to GitHub, right? So that means since Vercel is just listening to GitHub, it doesn't know about our new secret. So we actually need to add a new secret here. So I'm going to go to this environment variables tab. And I'm going to do kind of like what I did in the .env file. I'm going to do the equivalent of that, but it's going to be in a pretty UI this time. So I'm just going to copy this big ugly name right here, and we're going to post this in. And then we're going to give it its value, which, oops, get that here. Cool. And it's telling us what environments do we want this on. We're just going to set it on all the environments because we'll always need these. So I'm going to save that now, add environment variables, and I wonder, is it going to redeploy or do I need to redeploy? I probably do need to redeploy. So deployments, can I just say repeat this, redeploy? Okay, cool. Just redeploy. Okay, and now we see this building again. Let's see, this is our production URL. We've got our staging one right here. So once this finishes building, we can refresh, verify that Vercel is reading our secret. Yes, it's the whole, like this is the whole reason, like just making this little mistake. Like if you had made this mistake in production, all of a sudden your app is offline, and that could be pretty consequential, especially the more that you go down the route working with Bitcoin, with Lightning, and stuff like that. So that's why it's great to have a staging environment. Let's refresh. Okay, and boom, it worked. We have our sats now, and our past transactions are filling in. Amazing. So just close that, and our production is different. So what do we want to go over now? So I guess I just want to reemphasize what we talked about in the beginning. Because our React app is having to get built and sent to everyone's browser when it loads up, that means those environment variables still exist in there. So yes, this is not absolutely secure. We'll hit that next level of security in a future one when we build our little server. But for now, this is a step up. This is a step up, and we have our staging branch. And so let's talk a little bit more about the idea of the staging branch. I'm going to show you something, and then we're going to finish off by looking at pull requests, looking at PRs, and talking about the process of going through PRs, which is another kind of intermediate kind of thing. Like a lot of PlebDevs, a lot of junior devs, they use GitHub, but a lot of them might not be comfortable with going through a full pull request process, or maybe they never have, or opened up a pull request to an open source project or something like that. So yes, so staging staging branches. So I want to show you a little preview of some builds actually from my company Fold, and you can see what a really complicated build process might look like on GitHub. And I'm just going to show you this part of the screen right here. So I've got a PR here, and every time I open a PR, you can also see it's coming from this super specific branch, and it's going into staging. Every time that a PR gets opened into staging, we've got all of these different processes which are running on GitHub. So this is what would be like advanced developer environments. Like setting this stuff up is a lot, but this is kind of where the concept of a staging branch, this is the end all be all of it. So like every time that a PR is open for a change, this is just going into staging as well, not even production. We have all of these builds, all of these scripts that are running. So we prepare our app, we run every single test, lint code, create releases, and make sure those releases work. And this one actually has a failed one. So we'll have to figure out what's wrong with that. But this is kind of what it would look like, maybe if you got hired at a company and you have a staging kind of process, a testing process, what happens before you have changes in your code that make it into the production of the app. So that's kind of the final level. For us right now, we simply have this URL and this URL. Like that's kind of, for our little pleb app, that's enough of a kind of a safety and redundance there to keep ourselves from making mistakes. But there's lots of tools that you can get on GitHub. You can look in the actions, and there's also like GitHub apps. There's all these different tools that you can pull in to run different processes or check for security vulnerabilities or compress images that you add to your website, stuff like that. So it's good to just kind of get comfortable with that idea that, okay, I've got these apps, I've got these processes connected into my GitHub repo. And when I push local changes to my GitHub repo, I make those things run and look at my changes, look at my code, do something. So that's a lot of the idea of a staging branch. So now we have our staging branch. We made our changes. They look good. We can now merge it into the master branch and thereby update our deployment here. So we'll just do a really simple pull request here. So it's telling me that I can compare and pull requests because it detected changes, which is nice. But if you just needed to do this manually, you would go here to pull requests. You would say new pull request, and you can see here the UI is kind of showing us that one branch will be going into another branch. So in our case, staging is going to be going into master. And when we do this, the UI updates, it detects the commits. These are the two changes we made on staging that weren't on master. Are we sure we want to merge these in? And I can go look at all of these changes and see what they are. And I'm going to say, yeah, I do. But I'm not just going to merge it in right now. I'm going to create a pull request. I'm going to create this process for now getting this code in. So I can leave comments here. So I'll just say updated environment variables, setup staging environment. And that'll be good. So create pull request. So I do that, and now my pull request tab is showing 1 here. So we know there's an open pull request. There's no one else on this repo. It's only me. So I'm kind of like doing this diplomatic process with myself, which is a little bit funny, but it's actually good to do this. It's a good practice because this is what you'll do when you're working on real projects or working in a company. It's good to get comfortable with it and also just have a kind of a somewhat of a safe methodology. So now I've got this open PR, this open request to have changes from this branch merged into this branch. And so we can look around. Looks like Vercel has a bot that's telling me about the latest updates to my projects. Okay, thanks. And so, there could be a whole conversation going down in here. But since I'm alone, there's no conversation. I don't need any reviewers. They're just going to let me merge it. Sometimes you might see this button is is red or something like that because you need reviewers. Like that's definitely the case if it's like Bitcoin Core or, even a smaller project. And so, yeah, let's just merge it. Confirm merge. And then there we go. So now master and staging are up to date. And we can see here, this is the latest change. And now I'm going to go back to Vercel, and now we'll know that it will be redeploying, yes, because it detected the merge. Now master is changing, it's redeploying it, and we'll be able to check in a second that master is also working the same as staging was, which it should be. So that's great. Assigning domains. And ready. So that's our staging. Here we go. Let's refresh. We should see the uppercase L. That was another one of the changes. There we go. That's how we know. And we're pulling in our balance. We're pulling in everything we need here. So wonderful. That works. Great. So we now have our staging branch is set up. Our staging branch is deploying to its own URL. So we can now, as we're making changes, as we're updating the wallet, we'll be using the staging branch. And when our changes are good and we've tested them, we're going to be merging them into master, thereby deploying our new production. So very fun. That's a cool little environment, a nice little setup there. Now I'm going to expand on pull requests a little bit. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that. So I wanted to start by, I looked through some of my favorite repos and I was looking for issues and pull requests that would be a kind of a fun, good example. So I'm going to show you one that I found here. And so this is Stacker News, one of my favorite open source projects. And so if you just go, like if I just went to the repo, this would be the landing page. And if I was a pleb dev looking to contribute, I would come down here to the issues. This would be the first place I would look. And there's going to be all of these different issues. A lot of them I probably won't understand, but this one I found earlier was pretty easy to understand. That was this one. So feature request, strip tracking info from links such as tweets. So you click on it, and this person is kind of talking about a simple issue here where you have these parameters on the end of like tweet URLs. Like if you're sharing someone's tweet on Stacker News, there's these query parameters that have tracking info attached to them. So this person's talking about how they would love to have that tracking info stripped off automatically. So they're laying out their idea. The maintainer here comments, most sites do this unfortunately. Users don't seem to notice or care. I would like to just remove all query parameters from URLs, but some sites rely on them. Blah, blah, blah. I guess I can make an exception for Twitter and known trackers. So he says this, and we see below here, this person, this other random pleb dev who wasn't even in the conversation, just jumps in and they link to something. They use the GitHub feature to link. And they're linking to their PR. So they said, hey, I created a function which can be used to remove tracking information from URLs. For now, it only removes info from Twitter URLs. However, it can easily be extended by adding regex and blah, blah, blah. And I tested this, and here's how I tested it, and here was the output when I did test it. And this fixes 190. So he's pointing to the issue, and that's why it's kind of, we go back to the issue. That's why it got referenced here, because he was pointing to it. And so this is a cool little, this kind of shows you the beginning steps of what kind of searching for an issue and finding it and talking about it would be. But this is still an open PR. No one's looked at it yet. So there's still a conversation waiting to happen here. But I wanted to, let's see what time we're at. We're at 1:49. Let's see. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to show you this full process from both sides. So I'm logged into my GitHub here, but I'm going to open up a new private browser, new private window, and I'm going to log into a different GitHub, and I'm going to pretend to be another pleb who's going to open a PR to the pleb wallet. and we're going to see what the full PR process would look like. So I'm going to go to GitHub. This is always my first link here. So I'm going to sign in. I have another throwaway GitHub here I'm going to use. Let's see if I remember my password. Okay, cool. So now I'm logged into this random pleb here, and I'm going to go find myself on GitHub. Users. Here I am. Okay, and I'm going to go to my repositories. And so I'm acting as this different user now. And so now I'm going to actually, let's say I'm Stacker Hacker here, and I really like the Pleb wallet. I want to make a change, and I want Austin to merge in my change. And so what do I want to? I want to change this ugly README. I hate it. This is just like the README that Create React App gives you, which is dumb. So I'm going to change this. So how am I going to do that? I can't just go in here and change it because this is Austin's, right? This is Austin's repo. So I actually need to fork it. So I'm going to go fork off and fork this repo, and I'm going to make a change. And then I'm going to try and get Austin to accept my change. So let's do that. I'm going to fork it. So now I'm going to make Stacker Hacker Pleb Wallet React. I'm going to copy the master branch. That's fine. And here we are. So now I have my version of the repo. Cool. Let's make our change. We can just do it right here since it's just a README. We're going to get rid of all this crap, and we're just going to make it nice and simple. Say Pleb Wallet React. There we go. I can just commit my changes directly to master because this is my repo. I fully control it. And there we go. I changed the README. And now the UI is telling me I'm one commit ahead of Austin Kelsey master. See, I'm on Stacker Hacker master, but now I have a difference from Austin Kelsey master. So I'm going to, I want to get this changeover. So I'm going to open a pull request to Austin. So we're going to do new pull request. And since this is a forked project, it's not only showing which branch do we want to choose, it's showing which base repository. There's Stacker Hacker, Pleb Wallet React, and Austin Kelsey. And so I'm going to say I want to take my Stacker Hacker master branch. And I know that Austin's careful and he uses staging, so I'm going to merge it into his staging branch. Okay. And we can see our changes here. There we go. So I can say create pull request. I can put in a title, update, README. I'm going to say I thought this looked better. And create the pull request. Okay, cool. So I just did that. So now we see the pull request is open. And now I'm going to go back to my real identity here. Refresh this. We'll see, okay, the PR is open. So update README, okay. So I can go in here and look at this. And I have the power to merge. I have the power to merge here. If I were to open this up, where is that other window? Here it is. So you notice here, Stacker Hacker cannot merge. There's not even a button here. I can't even think about it. But I can here. But maybe I don't want to just merge this in. Maybe I have a problem. Like if I look at the files changed here, I can go look at his change, and I can write a comment here. I can say, actually, I would like a bigger font. Thank you. And we're going to start a review with that. So now this is kind of a timeline of events. I have the newest event on here where I'm pointing at this line of code. and I'm telling Stacker Hacker I want a bigger font. Cool. So let's get that bigger font. So now I'm over here as Stacker Hacker, and I see that. I can go into the pull request. Not seeing the newest comment here. Huh. Yeah, I do not see the review here. But either way, if we were to be in this conversation and I needed to now make another change, like, oh, okay, he wants it a bigger font, I could go back into this pull request. It's changed. Can I just edit right in here? Is it gonna let me do that? It is. Awesome. And we can do one hash, which will make it a bigger one. And now changes. Okay, cool. So now the change is just the one hash, okay? And yeah, I don't know why the Austin comment is not showing up here. But either way, we can still merge this in now and accept it. Merge pull request from here, confirm. And this is just on our staging. And so, yeah, it's not deployed to master yet, so I was able to accept this, addition from another user and add it in to staging, and now I could go test it in staging. It's not actually going to change anything because it's literally a README, but yeah, I was able to accept that change. And so you can kind of see the process there where we first had to fork as Stacker Hacker. We had to fork it over and get it under our name first, and then we were able to make our changes and open a pull request back into Austin's version, where then we could kind of go through that whole process and get it merged in. So yes, I guess that's a little bit more advanced to look at pull requests. I know it can still be pretty daunting at first, so maybe we'll try and do a live, work on an issue for a real project live sometime and go through the process together. I think that would be kind of cool and enlightening. But yeah, I believe that was everything I wanted to cover in this. We talked about environment, we actually talked about first a review of just the structure of a React project. We talked about environment variables. We talked about how we can't keep real secrets in React, but you can on a server. Nonetheless, we did add an environment variable because it's at least a little bit safer. Here is the API key. And then we set up our staging branch, our staging environment with the deployment there. And we now have staging URL, we have a production URL, and we kind of went through some pull requests and looked into that. So very fun. Yes, this was the first mini workshop. Like I said, production structure improvements will definitely be coming, but this is kind of a good next step for if you kind of finish the course material and you're looking to keep building on this and adding on those lessons that you can apply to future projects. So nice. With that said, I'll call it for this one, and we'll kind of do another poll and see which workshop people want next. But thank you for tuning in if you did, and we'll catch you on the next one. So later.